Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Dr. Ceara Deno. She's a certified parent coach and pediatric specialist who helps parents of highly sensitive children build better relationships with their children. So, this is my very brief introduction to you, Ceara. But as always, one of my favorite questions is who you are in your own words.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a coach for families who have highly sensitive children. I'm also a mom of two teenage boys. I'm a practicing pediatrician. And I'm also a highly sensitive person, so kind of emotionally sensitive, really empathic. And so I bring that to my work, really helping parents and kids understand each other better so that they can have these better relationships. So that's how I see myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. You mentioned highly sensitive children, so you specialize on them. So my question is, what are the signs? How do we know when we have a highly sensitive child or when we ourselves are highly sensitive?
Yeah. So I once heard somebody say, everyone's sensitive. It's just some people show it more. So I think it's there's no objective test for whether you're highly sensitive, but certainly, you get a feel for kind of emotional sensitivity. These are kids who feel very, very deeply. When they feel something, it may take them a very long time to get over that feeling. Same for adults. So they may seem to be upset over kind of minor things that don't seem like a big deal. They may have like out of proportion reactions to things that seem very small. So that's kind of the emotional sensitivity. They can have kind of sensory environmental sensitivities too. So some of these kids, may be picky eaters, picky about the clothes that they wear, have trouble having their hair brushed or washed or their nails. It's like sensory things. So the environment, they're very sensitive to that. Even things like, changes of seasons or starting school, moving to a new household, having a new family member. So all these transitions, they're just picking them up in their nervous system, and it takes them a lot longer to get over that transition. I like the idea of like a snow globe. So the nervous system is like this snow globe. And for more sensitive people, it just takes a long time for that snow globe to like come back to normal. So that's how I would describe it. So it's emotional sensitivity, but also environmental sensitivity. And about maybe 20% of the population is considered more highly sensitive. And so it'll show up at different ages in different ways. So really young kids may be kind of more shy. They may have trouble separating from their parent. That kind of, some of them may be quiet, more introverted. As they get older, it may show up as kind of, depending on the kid, again, kind of trouble starting new things, not wanting to be out of their comfort zone, some of that kind of fearful behaviors. Some older kids can, again, have trouble with transitions, so new things are really, really hard. And as kids get older, some of them continue to have kind of big temper tantrums and meltdowns in response to small things, just because, again, they're kind of just feeling things more than the average kid. So that's some of the things that we see. Yeah.
Yes. So a question that comes to mind is the cause. Do you know what causes people to become highly sensitive?
Yeah. So I don't know of the exact genetics, but it's studied in other species of animals. And so it's thought that it's a conserved trait that is present in, dogs and cows. And it's so,
Yeah.
if you thought of a population of any sort of animal, there would be some survival advantage to having a small number of kind of hyper alert, cautious individuals who would kind of be checking out things. And so these are kind of the more highly sensitive part of the tribe. And so they are maybe a little bit more cautious. They have certain other temperaments that would overall give that population an advantage. So it's so it is something that's scientifically studied. I think exactly what genes it's involved, I'm not totally sure, but certainly if your child is highly sensitive, there's a good chance that one or both parents might be more sensitive. So it definitely is inherited. So it's scientifically based. Yeah.
So the topic is create a more positive relationship with your child with less conflict and fewer power struggles and more connection and joy. So what's not to love about that? The solution for the problem. And as I said off record, your website, I went there and I saw the homepage has this, sign. It's a phrase that says, "You can have a peaceful home." So that stopped me immediately with a question. What would that look like? What is a peaceful home?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think for every parent and child, there's a journey to like learning who is my child, what do they need, who am I, what do I need, right? So I would say a peaceful home is one where both parents and children are getting their needs met, right? And so that's a journey of figuring out, who is my child? What do they need? Not the child I thought I was going to have that was going to do this and that and be this way. And not like my projection of who I think my child should be, but like, who are they actually? And how can we create a balance so that I'm also getting my needs met as a parent? Like I'm important too. And so, that's what I would say a peaceful home is, somewhere where people are able to negotiate that, right? Because your needs and my needs may be different, and we need to coexist and thrive. So that's my personal definition, I think.
Right. I love that. So how did that help you being a highly sensitive person? I would love to know when you found out that you were highly sensitive, and how did that help you understanding your children?
Yeah. So, I think it's only in the last couple of years that I kind of understood what high sensitivity was, but I certainly got the message as a kid that I was too sensitive. I got that message from people in society and maybe, but the kind of understanding that this was a trait that a lot of people had and that there were gifts to it, that I kind of only understood in the last couple of years. But certainly, temperamentally, I have two boys. One of them is very highly sensitive, and kind of I can see as he goes through different stages, I can see myself kind of, oh gosh, yeah, that's what it was like for me too. I had that same kind of more cautious temperament in different ways. So it's, I think anytime you have a child, you're kind of seeing yourself through their eyes a little bit. And then also, I also see myself as an empath, which I bring a lot to my work with parents, which is really, seeing both points of view. Can we understand from the child's point of view why they're doing what they're doing? Can we understand from the adult's view why that makes sense? And so kind of seeing all the different sides, I think is always helpful. And I've always seen all the sides, even when I don't want to. I can always understand kind of why everyone has their own motivations. So, so it's helped me with my own kids. And obviously, like, it's hard with your own kids because they do trigger you in ways that, are unique and individual. So.
Yes, I can imagine. I can only imagine that.
Yeah. Same with any relationship. Yes. Romantic relationships, same way, but.
Right. So you said a lot more than that. It was under the your website bio. That's what it was. And then, what are my unique gifts as a coach? So one, I am a pediatrician. I can, and then you said more than that. And then you said I can hold the big picture in my mind and not get lost in the details of the moment. So that kind of stopped me, and I put a heart around it, because this is a skill that not too many people have, to be able to be emotionally stable, I would say. And you talked to about being a emotional leader of your home.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something that you have learned, or
Mm-hmm.
somehow it came with you already, let's say, from another past life or genetically?
Yeah. I think I remember a moment when my kids were little, when I kind of learned this message, which was, my kids were, maybe like preschool age.
Yeah.
And I had a surgery. And so for about maybe a month, I was really kind of laid low and on a couch. And I had this idea that my kids were going to suffer because being a mom was doing all these things. It was emptying the dishwasher. It was doing the laundry. It was driving around, these things that I did, right? And in fact, like, I was missing the whole point, which was like my value to my children was in my essence and my energy and my being, not in what I did for them. And so, in
Wow.
fact, we had this like really wonderful experience where I just laid on the couch and they would lay with me and we would snuggle or read a book or watch TV, and they loved it. And it just kind of brought home to me how in the busyness and the to-do lists, we can feel like we're being and doing, and in fact we're missing the whole point, which is, we are kind of a soul and energy, and
Mm,
especially moms who kind of tend to all the emotions in the family, right? We are bringing, it's really our energy, and that we bring that to any relationship, not just our parent-child relationship. But yeah, to kind of separate out, like, the things I do are not who I am, right? I'm
mm.
bigger. I'm bringing more to the table than just the tasks that I complete. So
Oh my God, I love that.
yeah,
What's not to love about that?
yeah,
And then you got me started with the topic of spirituality. It's one of
yeah,
my favorite, for some reason, to talk about healing spirituality. The soul. What, talk to me for a moment about that. What is your, if you don't mind, of course, your ideas of spirituality? What is that for you? And how is that how you apply spirituality the way you just described?
yeah, yeah. I think, certainly, like, I'm always on a mission to understand, like,
Yeah.
what's important, why are we here, what are the, what are we bringing to this experience. So,
Right.
and I think, for any kind of any relationship we have, kind of constantly teaches us, like, what who am I? What am I bringing to this? What am I learning? And so, yeah, parenting has been just one way for me to constantly be relearning that message of, like, who am I? What am I bringing?
Mm,
And so,
mm,
yeah, so I find it just kind of a eternally good way to practice and learn and help other people, also, like, think about themselves in a different way, than they have, hopefully.
yeah. Yeah, going back to the bio, website bio that I read on your gifts as a coach. So you mentioned I am a pediatrician, and then you mentioned about the big picture. I love that. And then second, you said I have a gift of natural empathy. And then I was wondering, oh, that might be that's one of the gifts of being a highly sensitive person.
Mm,
You're
yeah.
able to feel your own feelings and detect that in others too. And then three, I create confidence in others. I love that too. Because, yeah, without confidence, that's an interesting concept for me. Confidence. What is to be confident? Yeah, well, I should ask you, because the fourth one I really love too. So, what kind of confidence when it comes to parenting highly sensitive people? What kind of confidence do we need?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm running a workshop on parenting confidence tomorrow.
Mm.
And one of the things, the way that I like to think about it is really trust. So it is trust, right? It's either
Yeah.
trust in ourselves, but I also love the idea of trust in the relationship, right? If you can trust in the relationship with your child, then you don't need to be perfect. You can have misunderstandings and recover. You can do things wrong and make a commitment to do it differently next time. So to me, it's really trust, and it's ideally we're trusting ourselves, but we're also trusting that this relationship is strong enough to withstand some challenges and problems, and it won't break. So yeah, that's my personal view of confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, confidence related to self-trust, right? Self-reliance. And the what we are trying to create here, which is a healthy relationship. So trusting that can flourish. Yeah, I love that too. And hopefully I didn't add too many words to
No,
your
no, I
to
love
your
it.
answer.
Yeah. No, I love it. Thank you.
And then four, you said, I bring humor, silliness, lightheartedness, and playfulness to my coaching. Life is stressful, so we need this. It's almost in a way you're saying that we need playfulness in the midst of chaos in a way. Kind of, wow, that's hard to do, but some people manage to do that, which is amazing. So is that something that we can learn, Kira, or this is another innate trait in a way?
Um, I think probably all of us started off as children who loved to play and be playful, and for lots of
Yeah,
reasons, it maybe gets pushed to the side, and we are told that it's not important. And so I
true.
think probably kind of taking away whatever is blocking our ability to play. I also think, for I have teenage boys, but I also the sensitive teenage boys, right? These are trying to find ways to connect emotionally with kids who don't want to talk about emotions, right? So,
Right. Yeah,
teenage
yeah,
boys are not going to want to sit and talk about feelings at length with you. But if we can make it fun and playful and lighthearted and take away that kind of very seriousness about it. And a lot of
right.
sensitive kids also don't like their emotions talked about because it feels very vulnerable, right? It's very exposing to have someone say, you feel embarrassed, like that feels terrible. And so how can we kind of bring the lightheartedness play to it, just
Mm,
kind of make it not so heavy. So that is always one of my goals as well. And it's partly just because I also am someone sensitive
mm.
who didn't always want to have my feelings talked about, but I can we make it a little bit less serious, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I would love to hear, if you can, an example for people who are watching this, parents. What would that look like? To what would be a good example of making a stressful situation into a lighthearted situation?
Yeah. So let's see. So, again, kind of, I have boys, and so we have a little bit of a kind of a dark sense of humor, kind of
Yeah, yeah.
macabre sense of humor at our house. But so, like something scary had happened for my son at school. I think, a child had to leave by ambulance, and there was a part of him. He's very empathetic, and I think the child was fine, but like they didn't know at the time if the child would be okay, and so there was
Right.
some real fear there, right? And so when we talked about it like, yeah, that's really scary, like that's hard. You worried about somebody. And then kind of as we revisited it later in subsequent days, I made it more fun and playful. And so I would say, how many kids needed an ambulance today? Did
Right,
anybody,
right.
And so we kind of tried to find some lightheartedness in it. I think, being
Yes.
in the medical profession as well, we
Yeah.
often deal with some really heavy things and need to find kind of the absurdity in it, and it's a way of kind of feeling, taking some of the pressure off. So that's, yeah.
That's a good example. Yes. We went through the hurricane here in Florida, Hurricane Milton. And then my dog and him, my husband, we were all together in this room without windows, dark, the electricity was not there. And gosh, it was so scary. And then at some point he said, wow, I feel like the roof will come off. The whole roof will lift. Maybe we'll be flying in a minute. And then I start laughing. And there was, in the midst of, the scary moment, I remember laughing. But I also, interestingly enough, I felt that I was absorbing the mirroring the fear around me. Like my dog was shaking, was so afraid. And I felt my body kind of trying to mirror that kind of fear. Because I'm usually not afraid of nature, especially. And that was interesting to see too, how interconnected we are as humans. Sometimes not just our fears, like we talked earlier about this, the ancestral kind of, let's say, lineage, right? With how much we carry from our ancestors. So I think everything is very much connected, and it's hard to know sometimes what's mine and what's not mine. I wonder if that happens to you, or if you notice your children kind of questioning that.
I what you were describing with your dog being afraid, like I got a huge, that I totally resonate with that, and that sense that our nervous system is picking up cues from other people at all times. And I do wonder even like if the animal to human pickup is even different than a human to human. I don't know, but right. In terms of am I safe? Am I not safe? Like if the animals around me are trembling and like, it's going to be really hard to stay calm. And I do think that, of course, is what happens with parents all the time, where, either parent or child gets heightened and the other person like really gets heightened, and then it is very hard to come down. So,
So going back to your work, there's something else that caught my attention. Yes, it was the 5, I would love for you to disclose that here too, if possible. Debunking the 5 myths of parenting a highly sensitive child. I know this is something that you offer for free on your website. Would it be okay to disclose 1 or 2 of them, Ceara?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know that I can recite them in order. So, right. But certainly, let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, I think, part of the challenge is that sensitivity is really seen by society as a weakness, right? And I get that a lot when I'm on social media talking about high sensitivity in children. And I sometimes get some comments about, well, that's because we're too soft on kids and we're not being firm enough. And so I think really understanding that sensitivity is a gift, and it's really powerful. And there's all these kind of advantages to being able to be very empathetic, and it can often be very associated with creativity and kind of just depth of thought and kind of deep thinkers. And so it really is it's not a weakness. It's really a potential strength. That's one of the really big myths that I love to debunk. I think one of the other ones can be that, as parents, we have to walk on eggshells because these kids are very fragile. And so we can't, hold them to high standards. And that's absolutely not the case either. We want to have really kind of compassionate, sensitive parenting where we are, trying to support them. And there's lots of ways that, these kids really thrive on routine, and they thrive on predictability and kind of knowing what to expect. So we want to support them, but it's absolutely not true that they can't, achieve really high things and kind of be held to high standards. So I don't want parents to think that they have to just cave and give these kids anything they want because these kids have big feelings. So that's another one of the really important myths that it's important to kind of help parents work through. And a lot of parents are worried because they don't know what to do when their child has a really strong, big emotion. And so kind of helping parents to both have empathy, right? Like, it's okay that I care that you have this big feeling. And it's still bedtime. We still have to go to bed. We're not going to, doesn't mean you get to stay up all night. And so that kind of warm and compassionate with limits, right? So combining those things.
Yes. Yeah. So I noticed, I interview a lot of people, I talk to so many people, and I read a lot. So I just noticed that there's some similarities when it comes to behavior, the highly sensitive people and narcissistic people. I was surprised to know that they were very highly sensitive too. So they get angry easily. You got to always be careful the things you say around them and do and all those things. That's how it works. So how do we know the difference? How do we know when a child's developing narcissistic traits or just being a highly sensitive child?
Yeah, so I'm certainly not an expert in narcissism. I will say we don't diagnose it in children. So narcissism is really a personality disorder for adults.
Yeah.
And if you think about kind of the developmental stages of childhood, being self-centered is very normal. So like the kind of grandiosity that, like, if you're an adult and you think that, the world revolves around you, that's really kind of worrisome. But if you're 6 and you think that the world revolves around you, that's very normal developmentally. And in fact, in childhood, kids tend to think, if you ask all the kindergartners, they're all going to be the president of the United States and they're all going to be professional football players, right? So they have this grandiosity that's totally normal. So now I think one of the challenges, if you're very sensitive in a world that feels overwhelming, is you can become totally focused on yourself and really kind of insensitive to other people. I think that's a real thing that can happen. And so you're so kind of focused on you and how everything is affecting you. And so I think that is, even with children, we want to hold them to the standard of, how I behave affects other people. How am I affecting other people? Are they being hurt by my actions? And so even young children can be held to that standard. So I think it is a fine line, but narcissism itself is not, is kind of a normal personality disorder, a normal personality trait in children, as you can imagine, just to see the world in your very immature eyes, which is kind of a normal thing. Yeah.
Well, I love the part about the blog that's about, the title is the real reason kids are argumentative, and there's a blog that's similar that relates in topic, defiant and difficult. The kids who hate being told what to do. So, and then here you talked about feeling safe, that's what they're looking for, and fear. So it's coming from fear, all that. So, and I love the way you say too, applying pressure won't help. Sometimes it makes it worse. And then what to do. That's really beautiful the way you wrote that here. We become more relationship focused. We become more curious. We tackle the problem like a team. We create connection. We use playfulness and lessen up on control. We stop caring so much about compliance and obedience, and we start caring about understanding and compassion. So that I had to have this here because it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, I think this is my own soapbox, but I think, sometimes we can, as adults, we can be pretty compassionate when kids are little. And I think sometimes with teenagers, we lose our compassion and we forget that there's still people who can struggle and have tough times and feel a lot of emotions. And so just reminding parents that compassion is not just for babies and toddlers. Compassion is something we can bring to older kids as well. And seeing ways to respond with love and compassion and gentleness to even a teenager who's challenged, just because I think that's one of the times that we as parents can be really kind of get very triggered, I think. So,
yes. Yeah. it has been fascinating, Ceara, to just be aware of how complex we are, we can be, right? If we really pay attention to, the dynamics, how the body mind works and in relation to the environment and other people and so many other things. It's just incredibly rich. It's like homework for a lifetime for sure. It never ends. It feels like it never ends.
Yeah.
Yes, I love your perspective on compassion and understanding. Just
Yeah.
not setting a limit to it. Just keep that as almost like a guiding principle, isn't it, in life?
Yes, it's funny. It's funny when you talk about kind of the reparenting yourself and being gentle
Yeah.
with yourself. I do kind of wonder whether when parents get so triggered by their teenagers, if it's because they just didn't get enough compassion when they were kids. And so they are reaching the limit of kind of, that's all I would have been given. And so I can't
Mm,
go that extra
mm.
step. I wonder if that is part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
really resonates true. I have to tell you, I went to the gym. We go to a gym, local gym close by, and I remember seeing, they place like these flyers on the table and all these cards and all these things. And I usually don't look at it. I just kind of pass by it. But the other day, I saw a picture of a dog. There was a flyer with a dog, and then a man on beside him, like two images. And then because I love animals, I went and I looked at him. I wish I hadn't looked at it. So it was like a horrible, violent act that he had committed towards the dog. And wow, that's really, see, that's one of my practices. How understanding can I be in this moment? Seeing
Yes.
somebody who has been so violent against an innocent creature. That was a tough one. And it still is at this moment, I have to say. So I don't know. I don't know how much of that we can hold. I guess we can understand, but I think the human heart or the nervous system gets in the way, and then you start feeling all these feelings. Maybe for highly sensitive people too, it's even more intense. And then I don't have anything against the man, of course, because I can see beyond that. But it's still tough in the body mind complex
Yeah.
to hold that truth.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you say. There are things that are too upsetting
Yeah,
for me to spend much
yeah.
time thinking about, but also having compassion for you as someone who is seeing this dog who's been injured and hurt, or yeah, like maybe the compassion needs to just be for yourself. That's really hard,
Mm,
right? That's really hard.
yes. I think you mentioned too throughout this interview in care unit, intensive emergency. That must be really, really, really tough, and
Yeah.
for a highly sensitive person, especially.
Yeah.
Is that something that you chose to do out of almost like creating that kind of challenge so you would overcome, or it just
Yeah.
happened to be?
Yeah. So, right. So I'm a newborn medicine physician. So when I work in the hospital, it's in the neonatal intensive care, and we work with babies who are early or preterm or
Yeah.
sick. Um, and yeah, I think my personal feeling is I think a lot of the physicians and nurses who work there are more emotionally sensitive, right? We are kind of identify with the underdog, the defenseless, right? The baby who is kind of, has no one, just
Yeah.
is defenseless and needs to
Mm,
be taken care of. So, um, I see it as a place that attracts a lot of kind of more emotionally sensitive people. And obviously, you're taking care of brand new parents. So there's a lot of kind of emotional richness in the work, which I really like.
yeah.
It also, to me, it's kind of this, I've always kind of had one foot in the kind of logic, and one foot in one foot in the heart and one in the mind, and to me the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, is really that half heart and half mind. It's all the science and technology, and then also kind of this
Wow.
richness of brand new parents
Yeah.
and stress, and yeah, so for me it's a real nice, I like that place where you're in between those two worlds.
Wow. So another we're almost at the end. But then the next blog post that I have here is the one that the title is "Strengthening Your Bond: The 5-to-1 Rule." Is it racial? Yeah, racial rule for parenting highly sensitive children. So I have hearts here around two of the points you mentioned that you made there. The statements was a question one. Did you know that for every negative interaction, it takes 5 positive ones to have a strong, secure, connected relationship? I didn't know about that, but that makes sense to me too now. Yeah. How do we go about this? Because it seems very systematic, right? Because now you have to observe that very negative interaction and then kind of almost count the next 5 that I would like to make to overcome this one, to override this one. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So I wouldn't want anyone to actually be counting, because obviously that'd be like too much pressure on yourself. But
Yes.
but I do think as parents, I'm going to say as moms especially, right? We forget that we're raising a human being, a human person, and we start to kind of see them as a list of their flaws, right? Oh, you're not dressed right. Your room is too messy. You didn't try hard enough on your homework. Whatever the to-do list is, and so just really a reminder that none of us do great with being criticized. It's not very motivating to be criticized, and so in all of our relationships, our children, our colleagues, our best friends, people love to be seen and appreciated for things that are going well. And so how can you find the good in your child and see celebrate the things that they already do well, and build on those strengths. And so I think that's something that is generalizable to all relationships. And so it's really, for parents, a lot of it is letting go of the anxiety. Like, if I don't criticize my child, they're not going to learn. If I don't constantly lecture them, they're not going to figure it out. Is that really true? Maybe your kid, you could let it go and your kid will figure it out, which is my personal view. So a little bit less parenting and a little bit more celebrating and encouraging. And that's just kind of my style. I like to be a cheerleader more than I like to be a disciplinarian. Wow. That's kind of my
I love
way.
that. Something else that you said, so it was under the same blog post, the strengthening your bond. It was highly sensitive children are even more tuned to criticism and negativity. So harsh words can really cut deep and linger in their minds. So you mentioned that. Yeah, that's, it doesn't help. And then you said, but for sensitive kids, they may not always feel our love. So that's something that I highlighted here because I found it to be interesting, because if we are open to everything else, all the other kinds of emotions, why is love a challenge in a way? So talk to me for a moment about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Part of the biology of this kind of emotional sensitivity is that kind of the brain's threat detector is just more easily triggered. So the amygdala, the stress hormones. So these kids are detecting threat at lower levels. So where I might just raise my voice a little bit, they hear me screaming at them. Why are you yelling at me? Right. So they're, and it's based on their brain chemistry. They're not intending to overreact. So they're detecting a bigger threat. And so, so that is part of the reason why, they can feel criticized when we don't intend it. And so, kind of trying to see it through their eyes, as opposed to our eyes. My point of view is, well, I didn't yell, so therefore you should feel fine. But that child might feel like you are screaming at me. And so if we can see their point of view, see how they're feeling, can we change how we're responding in a way that allows them to kind of feel, get the message without the harshness? So,
Right.
yeah.
That
So,
also resonates true. And that's another skill, isn't it? Would you call it a skill? Empathy? That's another
yes.
skill to
Yeah.
learn
Yes, for
for
sure.
parents. Yeah. That's a fundamental one.
Mm.
So, wow, there are so many skills then to be, and it's not just like you said, it's some of these, I call them, just pieces of timeless wisdom, really. It's about connection, isn't it? Becoming better at connecting with others. Which, interestingly enough, we're already connected. We're already so connected to everything. But for some reason, we create this, this false sense of disconnection for whatever reason. And then we don't engage, or our relationships are not as healthy as we would love them to be. So everything you do, I'm not a mother, so I'm kind of seeing from the lens of relationship in general, and I have learned a lot from you not being a parent, so I can only imagine how much parents can learn. Thank you so much, Ceara.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you. It was a wonderful conversation.
Wow. So at the end of this conversation, I would like to mention your services. Please, let's see if I got everything here. The initial call, we offer a 30-minute free initial call for anyone interested to know more. And you also offer a 1-hour parent coaching free as well. So that's very generous of you. I love that. So yes, I have that here. And then the website is sweetspotparenting.com. It will be on the podcast notes, easily to just click on it. Is there anything that I missed, Ceara, when it comes to your services? Anything coming up,
Um,
retreats, workshops?
I have a workshop that's coming up on confidence in parenting, but that
Yeah.
actually will be done by the time this podcast is released. So that's probably, but yeah. So I mainly work one-on-one with parents, but also sometimes in groups of parents. I do a course for highly sensitive parents as well to kind of help them understand how to thrive. So those are my.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. So I have everything here. Your website will be here too. I want to thank you again for your presence in the healing world. And it's more than that. To me, you're connecting, bridging the science and spirituality, mind, heart. That's what I see clearly here. So my last question to you is about freedom. What is your idea of freedom? What is to be free from your perspective?
Freedom. Yeah. So that's a great question. I think the ability to see ourselves more clearly, right? So to be able to see where we're blocked, see where we're inauthentic, see where we're
Yeah.
not allowing ourselves to maybe love ourselves or take care of ourselves. To me, that's freedom. That kind of ability to self-correct and choose a different path, and recover from challenges and choose to love ourselves despite things that we might have done imperfectly.
Yes, I love that. Thank you again for being you and for doing what you do. And we'll be in touch again.
It
Bye
was
for
my
now,
pleasure.
Ceara.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.